Were you a black sheep growing up? And if you were, how do you overcome that? I can tell you that I was one of those people. I was a black sheep in my family. And, you know, if you're a parent or a grandparent, please be cognizant of treating your child or grandchild differently than the other kids or grandkids, because even as a young child, you notice those differences. You can feel if you're a black sheep. Um, so, how was I a black sheep? Let me give you some examples. Let's say, you know, my one grandmother on my mom's side of the family, she was basically the matriarch, the alpha female of the family. She ran the household. She had 5 kids. My mom was one of her kids, obviously. And there were some dynamics involved with this. She wasn't a huge fan of my father, and I resembled my father, and I think that would kind of trigger her sometimes. Plus, she had, like my father, borderline personality disorder. So she had a difficult time controlling her emotions. She would fly into rages on little or no provocation. And she was basically, like my father, a rageaholic. And so, what are some examples? I remember one time I was at my grandparents' beach house for the weekend, and I had 2 younger uncles because, you know, they did have 5 kids. They were only, I think, like one was 5 years older than me and the other was 7 years older than me. And I was, I think, 11 or 12 years old, and both my uncles had a bunch of their friends over at my grandparents' beach house in Tiki Island. It's by Galveston, just south of Houston. And so, you know, I was a preteen and I looked up to my uncles. I thought they were cool. I thought their friends were cool. And so, you know, I was just hanging out, just chilling. And somebody apparently broke the air conditioning knob. I didn't touch the air conditioning, but when my grandmother saw that, she comes raging into the living room and starts screaming at me in front of all these teenagers that I looked up to, and accused me of breaking the air conditioner. And I just said to her, I didn't touch it, I didn't break it, but she kept screaming at me and going on, and I just felt embarrassed and humiliated and just, you know, ran out of the living room in tears. And that's just one example. It just seemed like basically, if anything went wrong, if something broke and I was there, I would always get blamed whether I did it or not. It felt really unjust to me. And there were multiple times where she would berate me and scream at me in front of family, in front of my uncle's friends, like she didn't care. And she would just humiliate me in front of everybody. And not just that, my little sister and I, my sister was 3 years younger than me, if ever, you know, brothers and sisters bicker. So if we ever did start kind of fighting or bickering about something, I was the one who always got in trouble. It didn't matter who started the fight. It didn't matter who was at fault. Sometimes I was at fault, sometimes my sister was, but 100% of the time, I was the one who got in trouble. I was the one who got chewed out. I was the one who got punished. And, you know, these experiences left deep scars and deep emotional wounding in me. For example, I had a subconscious belief, and in doing this healing work over the years, trauma processing, release, and healing work, I have become aware of patterns and negative beliefs, beliefs that you know were not helpful. And one of those was that the world is unjust, that I'm going to be found at fault or blamed for things even if I didn't do them. And when you have that kind of underlying belief, it can turn into a self-fulfilling prophecy in a lot of situations. I'd also be, super defensive and reactive. It contributed to social anxiety because if I'd be, in big dinner situations or in big groups, subconsciously I had a fear that if something went wrong, I'd be the one who was blamed. And I'd be ridiculed and ostracized in front of everybody else. And nobody was actually doing that to me in a lot of situations, but that's just the way I felt. And it made me very introverted, very hesitant to share and properly socialize. And it took me years to overcome this. And not just that, because I had these negative subconscious beliefs and these underlying kind of patterns and stories about the way that I felt the world worked, there were situations where I would end up being kind of ostracized and picked out. I can remember situations when I was in college. I was in a fraternity, and there were situations where kind of people would gang up on me and make fun of me, and it just, because of the patterns from my childhood, when I would stand up for myself as a little kid, I would just get screamed at even more and punished even more harshly. So then as an adult, if I was, being unfairly scrutinized or made fun of, I would just kind of go into a shell. There's the fight, flight, or freeze response. I would just basically be trapped in freeze, and I wouldn't stand up for myself like I should have. And again, it took years of work to overcome this. And so now I do stand up for myself, and I refuse to believe that I'm to blame for things that I'm not to blame for. But it wasn't easy. It took going to seminars and workshops. It took reading hundreds of books, watching thousands of hours of self-development videos, including about our subconscious and psychological health and healing and mindset shifts and things like that. It also took doing many trauma release processes. And so if you can relate to what I've gone through, that's basically what you've got to do. You have to do the work. You cannot just think that, like, even realizing your patterns and the source of your trauma, that's only maybe a quarter of the battle. And look, some people go through their lives kind of from one disaster to another, and not realizing their patterns, not realizing their subconscious beliefs that are negatively impacting their lives. So look, that first quarter is very important, and I would urge you to look at your patterns and to evaluate your subconscious beliefs. One way to do that is stream of consciousness. Just take out a sheet of paper and just write all the ways that you feel about yourself, positive and negative. Don't overthink it. Just write whatever comes to mind. Evaluate situations and kind of your place in those situations. Do you feel left out sometimes? Do you feel picked out among your social group, your family, or at work? And evaluate those things. Write that down. Awareness is important. Also, therapy can help you come to these realizations, can give you some guidance, and help you determine root causes of the current negative feelings or problems that you're having in your life. But once you have that awareness, that alone is not enough. Now, what you have to do is process, release, heal the trauma. And so what are ways that you can process? One of the ways is writing what's called, and I've shot a video about this before, write a getting satisfaction letter, basically to the person or people who made you feel that way about yourself. Write them a letter basically recounting what happened, telling them how it made you feel, what you wish would have happened instead, and and doing that does help. And sometimes you have to write the letter multiple times. I did write the letter to my grandmother. I mean, she's since passed away. So I wrote the letter multiple times, and it did help me just kind of process what happened, look at it rationally rather than emotionally. And, you know, I know my grandmother loved me. She just had issues, and that's the thing. Like, especially as a young child, you can't understand that people have their own issues, have their own traumas, have reasons for why they behave the way that they behave, which have absolutely nothing to do with you. But as a child, you don't know that. You don't have that level of consciousness and awareness. So if you're being mistreated, you just blame yourself. And so you think, well, this wouldn't be happening to me if I wasn't somehow defective, if I wasn't unlovable, if I wasn't just bad, because otherwise, why would this be happening to me? As especially a young child, you just have no idea that there could be other causes for why people might mistreat you. But as an adult, you can be aware of that, and that's part of processing. It's just understanding that there's people out there who just don't have the tools, or unconscious, and frankly don't feel good inside. It's not like a happy person is going off on rants and berating people and screaming at people. It's because inside they're in emotional turmoil as well. Now, it doesn't justify what they did, but it just helps you understand that it's not about you, it's about them. People won't treat you any worse than they treat themselves internally. And when you look at it that way, in a way, you can even feel sorry for people because their internal world is chaotic, it is painful. And now, as far as the release part of things, that's my specialty. That's what I've learned how to do the best, and I think is like the missing link for a lot of people on their healing journey. And there's lots of trauma release methods. There is, and I have videos about all these. There's network chiropractic. There's Wim Hof breathing with cold exposure. There is neurofeedback. And that's a mix of release and healing, because it actually helps to rewire your brain so you're less emotionally reactive. What else? There's Kambo, the Amazonian frog poison, which is very extreme, but has helped me tremendously. There's psychedelics. There is MDMA therapy. Not telling anybody to break the law, but there are more and more studies. There's starting to also be states and countries that allow these types of therapies. I do recommend, if you go that route, to have it be guided with either a therapist or a shaman. And again, I don't recommend that anybody break the law. If it's illegal where you're at, go to somewhere where it's legal. You don't want to, have to deal with more trauma and stress by getting arrested. So the great thing is we live in a time where there's so many methods that just either weren't widely used before or weren't as known about. So that could help you with the release part of things. And the healing part, that's just basically a combination of everything. It's increased awareness, it's trauma release, it's self-development, it's learning, it's avoiding negative situations, not watching too much news, flooding your world with positivity, working on your mindset, getting rid of toxic people, and replacing them with supportive people in your life. And if it's family, you can't really divorce your family unless it's something really extreme, but you can limit contact if it's somebody who's abusive towards you. And so I know I threw a lot at you out there, but the point is, even if you were the black sheep in your family, I know that if you were that you can relate, and that and that you know what I'm talking about and you know how horrible it feels. Just understand that your past does not have to equal your future, just as Tony Robbins would say, and that you can decide to rewrite your story. Just because you were the black sheep as a child does not mean you have to be the black sheep as an adult. And I'm not saying it's easy. There's a lot of things that you have to do, but you can do them. And I highly recommend that you do. Because look, the time's gonna pass anyways. And so you don't wanna just keep struggling through your life. You wanna make progress in your life. And this is a challenge that can be overcome. And I know that it's unbelievably unfair if you were treated as a black sheep. Life, unfortunately, is unfair sometimes. And so it wasn't right what happened to you, but now as an adult, you need to grab the bull by the horns, you need to take control of your life, and you need to decide for yourself that just because that happened to me before does not mean that that needs to continue throughout my life. And if you do the things that I recommend, and I am a huge fan of stacking methods. That's why if you have a method that's worked for you, please comment below and share with others. Let's help people heal and move forward in their life. And if you were treated as a black sheep when you were younger, I'm sorry that happened to you. That's a horrible thing. And just know though, that even though what happened to you was terrible, you can overcome it. You can go from being the omega to being the alpha. There's no reason that you can't. And it might take some time. Be patient with yourself. Be self-compassionate. Do the opposite of the way that you were treated growing up as being the black sheep. Affirm yourself. Be your own best friend, champion, and supporter. Talk to yourself kindly. And by doing all these things, you'll definitely be able to overcome this issue, and it'll be something that might not be a pleasant memory, but in the long run made you a stronger person, made you a more compassionate person, and will make you happier for the rest of your life. So until next time, I'm pulling for you, and I love you.